And welcome to the Midday Market Update for today, February 16th, 2021. My name's Kevin Hill, here with Michael Vincent. I got the date right.
You did. You nailed it, brother. Very vociferous of you.
I did. I nailed it.
I don't think you did. I don't know if that's correct, though. Still learning.
I don't know if it's the correct use of the word either.
We have a very vociferous show today, though. We have a lot of good people, and it is interactive. So get your comments and questions in on. So we're on FreightWaves LinkedIn and Facebook channels, right? And so get your comments and questions in, and we'll get to them and try to address them as best we can. Won't we, Kevin?
We will. I'm going to LinkedIn right now, so I'll be logged in just a second for that. But we have an excellent show for you today. At 12:30, we have Patrick Maher coming in from Gulf Winds. He's down in Houston. It's phone call only because everyone in Houston seems to be without power right now. I was supposed to do a session for our Global Supply Chain Week coming up Monday, February 22nd, with an energy expert down in Houston, and we had to delay that because there's no power, no Wi-Fi. So we're running into a lot of issues in Texas. Nick Austin will be on here in a second to talk about the epic storm that we're all facing. And then we have Ann LaRocco from CNBC and the author of Trade Wars, Containers Don't Lie, talking about, or giving us an update, I should say, about her recent articles on ocean carriers refusing to load ag exports. Right, Michael Vincent?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's I can't wait to see that update. It's been this war of words. In fact, that's been a headline or two, I think. The war of words, right? Saying you're not taking our exports, and then people are throwing up data. Other sides throwing up data that shows that the exports have not declined proportional to. Anyways, we'll see. We'll get an update from her and see what's going on there. But first, we're going to get to some headlines. Shall we get to some headlines, Kevin?
We should. We should do the headlines. Michael Vincent, what do we have on top?
So we've got from Modern Shipper, right? Brian Strait writes that if drones can deliver Starbucks, what's taking so long for packages, right? So company Flytrek's CEO says the speed of deployment depends on regulations and public acceptance of the drone delivery. If you live in Fayetteville, North Carolina, for instance, you can now have Starbucks delivered, not quite in your backyard yet, but soon perhaps. An Israeli drone company, Flytrek, has been testing drone delivery in North Carolina, delivering items from restaurants in the Holly Springs town center to a pickup location within a 5-minute drone flight. So they're delivering Starbucks, Dairy Queen, Blizzards, pastries, and light meals are among the menu items. It's more gentle than most human couriers, Yariv Bash, who is the co-founder and CEO of Flytrex, told Modern Shipper. Flytrex is among the growing number of drone providers and companies that are hoping to cash in on a delivery market that is expected to reach more than $6 billion by 2026, Kevin. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, in late December released new regulations that help expand that. And what they did was, the FAA rules require unmanned aircraft to broadcast identification or location information, and that allows them to operators of small drones to fly over people and vehicles and at night in certain conditions. But in January, they approved a waiver request by American Robotics, Inc. that allows them to fly past visual line of sight, which obviously, as you can imagine, will greatly expand the ability of drones to do what they want to. Bash, who's a CEO, co-founder at Flytrex, noted that scenarios in which local grocers can benefit from drone delivery. In fact, he believes that drone delivery is easier than package delivery. Retailers, Bash noted, are still struggling with inventory transparency, while grocers turn goods over quicker, so items are usually in stock, making a demand delivery more viable. Drone, he said, the drone was designed for from day one for retail and food delivery applications. He also said, if I told FedEx to deliver a pizza to your house, it sounds very weird, even though FedEx delivers to your house. This was purpose-built for these type of applications. And so what he's saying there, Kevin, is that for grocery delivery and retail delivery, food delivery, that's what the drone is designed for. And I would agree to it with him to a certain extent, except maybe, you got the drive of e-commerce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of drives it away from I think the application of drone for really that type of thing that he's thinking of is direct from the brick and mortar store in your local neighborhood right to your house, right? Where e-commerce is now, it's never even going to touch that store, right? So FedEx becomes the actual delivery for those e-commerce type of things. He also goes on to say, or in the article, we talk about Walmart will begin using drone delivery pilot with customers along with Arkansas and Missouri State Line this summer in cooperation with drone provider Zipline International. Air Canada is supporting e-commerce drone deliveries in Canada. Japan Airlines is also involved in home or drone delivery project. It goes on and on. And even truck manufacturers Workhorse Group is trying to benefit as they have now on a drone atop of their vehicle. Their vehicles are designed to carry a drone on top of them for package delivery assistance to the drivers that may be making deliveries, right? So it goes on and on. He does say that it's more of an urban thing. So in his mind, it's more of a grocery type of thing and a quick food delivery and small retail, and also more in the suburbs type of area rather than the urban type of thing. As he says that skylines don't change much when you're out in suburbia, which makes it a little bit easier.
So they don't. It does make it a little bit easier, and that leading headline. If you haven't heard our announcement, we've created a new publication. This is a sister publication of FreightWaves.com. It's Modern Shipper. This is where this headline comes up from, and it's started by Brian Strait, who's with the original editorial person here at FreightWaves, and talking about on-demand delivery. E-commerce delivery, the gig economy. So everything that really revolves around that, we have started coverage on, and that's modernshipper.com. And you can go there and check out all the latest stories that we have up there. Nico Brown, the problem I see is that most drones require a constant network connection and that they can get hard in some areas. What if hackers take down a network, which is a very good point there. There's a lot of questions.
It certainly is. I agree with you. And there's more to it than that. And I don't think these guys here, even at Flytrex, are trying to say that it's going to be a piece of cake. No. It's not. It's certainly a ways off, and they're finding where they're going to be most useful, right? To predict exactly where they're going to be used is foolhardy at this point. But I'm a proponent of them, a vociferous proponent of drone delivery, though, and technology and advancement there.
Yes, I believe the next coming years will be one of the drone wars as companies compete to dominate that. Here, Robert Hill, my father, is chiming in now. 2 degrees there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Feels like 2 degrees. Sunny, though. It's sunny and 2 degrees in Owasso, Oklahoma out there. So, hello, Dad. Good to see that you're watching.
So 2 degrees feels like 2 degrees.
I know. Well, it's better than the wind chills of minus 20 degrees, I suppose, right? So.
Oh man, I know those. Growing up on the south shore of Lake Erie, I know those. It's 0 degrees, but it's minus 100 outside. Yeah.
So our next story, our next top headlines from Greg Miller. And it is ship tech startups, amazing valuations, and a huge surge in interest here. And it really says that the global shipping industry, long stubbornly resistant to change, now faces heightened external pressure from investors, competitors, customers, lenders, and regulators to embrace technology and operate more efficiently. Simultaneously, more VC managers are setting their sights on ocean shipping. Maritime is gathering interest among VCs and private equity as the next industry to digitize, says the CEO of SkySail Advisors and Burmester and Vogel in an interview with American Shipper. He described current valuations as amazing. The general partner of a VC firm, TMV, commented, "I see a huge surge in interest from VCs who haven't focused on any of this before. TMV is currently in the midst of raising $50 million for a new fund that will focus in part on investments in supply chain and shipping startups." Earlier this month, the Lonas Martinos-led Signal Group launched Signal Ventures to invest in the growing activity in the maritime startup scene. He told American Shipper there are a lot of more investors looking at the space. There's a lot of capital out there, and there's a lot of energy on all sides, from ship owners as well as founders. We're seeing a huge amount of optimism in terms of what's in store for the future. And one of those reasons there's a lot of optimism and enthusiasm, Michael Vincent, is that people see maritime as behind compared to other industries and compared to other transportation industries. So
they really do. Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's so much there to disrupt, Kevin Hill. I mean, and it is behind for many different reasons. I mean, it's international, right? You've got all these different variations of the exact same type of paperwork. So even though it's a bill of lading, commercial, commercial bill of lading or documents for the BCO or what have you, we're talking about an industry that doesn't even agree on the codes for the specific ports internationally, right? So there's a lot. There's certainly a lot there to disrupt, and a lot of money to be had and a lot of efficiencies to be gained, not only in supply chain visibility and those efficiencies, but also from an environmental aspect, right?
Though there is. So there's a lot of technology coming into global supply chains and maritime. And it's something Global Supply Chain Week that starts off Monday, February 22nd. That next week, March 1st through 3rd, is a deep dive, a 3-day deep dive, really, into the new technologies and new, just really new ways of doing things, and a look at 3 full days of global maritime and technology and the state of play right now. So we're really going to dive deeper into that here, March 1st through 3rd.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's I'm looking forward to that. We'll be deeply involved with that. I'll be watching.
Before you do the next headline, Michael,
sure.
Nico Brown here says, I am a vociferous supporter of this bit, but he did have to Google what vociferous meant and how to spell it.
Nico, come on, man. I had to Google it too, Nico.
I did too.
I Googled it vociferously. I'm a
What's our next headline?
Yeah, so this is something that is really good to hear, actually, and it's timely. Obviously, it's it will be obvious once I get to it. Is so talking about the COVID vaccines, and this is Eric Coolidge, and I believe this is an American shipper, but a public-private effort supplemented by Dubai is designed to ensure vaccine distribution to lower-income nations. Now, we've talked about this before, Kevin, how your more wealthy nations, obviously like the United States, Canada, and European nations, et cetera, pretty easy to get this type of stuff done. But when you start talking about the lower half of the globe, you start talking about areas where they don't have the infrastructure or the money to purchase $26 billion worth of vaccine and get it to them. So there's 16 international airlines that have signed up for UNICEF's humanitarian air freight initiative and agreed to prioritize delivery of COVID-19 vaccines, essential medicines, and other supplies to more than 100 lower-income countries. Participating airlines include Airbridge Cargo, Air France, KLM, Brussels Airline, Cargolux, Cathay Pacific, Qatar Airlines, Ethiopian Airlines, United Arab Emirates, et cetera, Lufthansa, Singapore Airlines, United Airlines, Korean Airlines. I don't know if I mentioned 16. I could keep mentioning them unless you're bored of that list already, Kevin. But so delivery of these life-saving vaccines is a monumental and complex undertaking, considering the sheer volumes that need to be transported, the cold chain requirements, the number of expected deliveries, and the diversity of the routes, said Leva Kadili, director of UNICEF Supply Division, in a statement. We're grateful to these airlines for supporting the vaccine rollout. Flights are expected to begin later this quarter as well. So this is really great stuff. But the World Health Organization says it still needs another $26 billion in donations from the wealthier nations and to support the distribution to the world's poorer nations, which is the disparity, right? The public health officials are concerned, obviously, about vaccine nationalism and hoarding by countries that control development or can afford to buy the vaccines and hoarding this stuff, right? So it's not really good. But Let me get to this real quick. Meanwhile, the neighboring Emirates of Abu Dhabi and Dubai have formed competing umbrella organizations centered around their own national transportation companies to speed up vaccine deployment through their air hub. So Dubai's effort, however, specifically seeks to address logistical challenges for lower income countries. 2 weeks ago, the government announced it was forming the Dubai Vaccine Logistics Alliance, bringing together the logistics and infrastructure capabilities of Dubai-based Emirates, ocean terminal operator DP World, and Dubai Airport to help COVAX. The alliance is working with a broad set of stakeholders, including pharmaceutical manufacturers, forwarders, government agencies, and other entities for transportation of vaccine through Dubai Airport, which can store a large amount of the vaccine doses and ship them, get this, Kevin, anywhere in the world within 48 hours. So
that
good
is
stuff.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
is good
it's
stuff.
good.
48 hours. I mean, that's a quick turnaround lead time to send out a vaccine. So that's a very encouraging news. I'm glad to hear that. And hopefully the fundraising continues and that extra, $26 billion is met. So we can get those
Yeah, if you
vaccines
want to go
out.
donate some, I'll hold down the fort here for a few minutes while you run down and give them a quick billion or two. Yeah.
What's a billion between friends?
I don't know. It's chump change, really.
I know.
No, I mean, in all seriousness, a big supporter of this type of thing because I mean, the only way we get rid of this is we got to support those countries and not let this drag in for tens and decades and centuries before we eradicate something like that. I mean, God, we still got malaria running around all over Africa. We can't even get rid of that. So it's crazy.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. So swift decisions, definitely. So let's go to our final headline. That's from Modern Shipper as well. And Lyft sees its future in its autonomous and B2B focused, right? So Lyft, the popular ride-hailing company, Lyft, sees its future, and it is autonomous and B2B focused. On the Lyft earnings call on February 9th, co-founder and CEO Logan Green spoke a bit about the future of transportation, a future he sees Lyft being perfectly situated to thrive in. He was talking about autonomous vehicles and business-to-business deliveries. We believe the future of transportation is as a service, and we are the only company in North America that has a seamless, multimodal transportation platform that we can replace car ownership. We expect autonomous vehicles to accelerate this transition. This will transform the ride-sharing industry and their business. Green went on to say that he believes AVs, automatic vehicles, would be first deployed on ride-share networks. And given the expected vehicle costs, one key issue will be getting first-wave vehicles to break even, which will depend on utilization. He said, this will be tricky because those vehicles will only be able to service a subset of trips due to likely domain and weather restrictions. It will take time for AV technology to advance to the point where AVs are able to accommodate every rider under every condition. So what do you think about that, Michael Vincent? Is car ownership going away over the next 20 or 30 years?
Yeah, I think it starts declining. It already has started declining. We've seen it, and certainly the lockdowns and work from home have sped that up as well. At least dual cars. I know several people who have gotten rid of a car because they're not going to work anymore, even though they live out here in Middle Valley where I do, and not even downtown. And you need a vehicle to get around. Two cars are not necessary if both people are working from home in many people's eyes, and so they're getting rid of those. So just car reduction, number of cars per family. Yeah, I don't know, 20, 30 years. I'm not that smart to tell. There's, as he pointed out in here, there's a lot of things that got to happen between now and then, right, for it to work.
But there are, one of the surprising things, I was doing some prep for my discussion for the Global Supply Chain Week interview that I was doing this morning on energy, oil and gas, outlook for oil and gas, coming up with Ben Shattuck from Wood Mackenzie. And I had been glued to these numbers last year, but I hadn't really checked it in a month or two, is gasoline sales from Bank of America, from debit card and credit card purchases. And at the height of the lockdowns about a year ago, it was negative 40% year over year sales. It's gone from that to 20% late last year around September. And right now it's only about 5% down. year over year, or compared to 2019, I should say, 5% down. So, I mean, people are still driving just about as much as they did. I know that the car ownership has declined significantly with the new generation of drivers not being as glued to having a driver's license and being able to drive as we once were, right? I mean, I'm sure you were, your 16th birthday, you're down at the DMV ready to take that test, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder if a bit of that is getting out and driving because you haven't in a while, and getting on some trips and doing some things, and COVID numbers are coming down. But it'll be interesting to see, because that would not dictate that car sale or car ownership is going down that much. At least usage. I don't know if people own fewer cars but are using more gas. I don't know.
I don't know, and it's an interesting concept. If you have autonomous vehicles, and why would you need to own a car? You could share a car, certainly in urban centers. And
I mean, it really could be that people are getting out right now, Kevin. But I mean, what is the revenue in for Uber in Lyft right now? How's their revenue doing? Is it down because are people just using their own vehicles now more than they did the ride shares because of the pandemic? But they're getting out more again. We're loosening up restrictions because numbers are, in many places dropping off a cliff. I mean, not to be too optimistic. I am very optimistic of where the numbers are going, but people are definitely getting out and moving around more. I don't know if that has something to do with it or not, Kevin.
It does. It does. Like at the height last year, Uber's ride-sharing business was down 75-80%. And there were, probably from March or April to, I don't know, November, December, I never got into an Uber. I never had a need to get in an Uber because I wasn't going anywhere. So, and I usually will take 2 or 3 Ubers a month.
Okay, but now when you're going, and you live downtown, so now when you're going somewhere and you would take an Uber, do you drive your car?
No, I'll take an Uber, but I'm not going out as much. That's the thing. It's a rare occasion these days.
I'm just saying, if gas purchases are up, I mean, we're beating the hell out of this horse to death. I mean, but
we are. You know what we should do?
Michael Vincent, let's talk about. Do we have weather or something like that?
We do.
Guys, it is still bitterly cold across all those areas that got hit by that historic winter storm the last couple of days. And so a lot of roads still snow and ice covered from Texas and Oklahoma to Arkansas, parts of the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys. And it's going to remain an issue not just today, even though the storm is gone, but for possibly the rest of the week, because a follow-up storm is coming. There's going to be more snow and ice, particularly across the southern plains and the lower Mississippi River Valley for later today and Wednesday. But as of now, there are several airports across the south that are closed, as well as, or including rather, Houston Hobby and George Bush Intercontinental in Houston. There are still millions of people in Texas without electricity, most of those in Houston, hundreds of thousands of other people without power across other southern states. There are intermodal terminals closed with Union Pacific Railroad. They say their customers should expect delays of 72 hours. CSX telling its customers to expect issues as well, not just in the areas that are going to get hit across the southern plains and Mississippi Valley with this second storm, but up in the Ohio Valley and the Northeast again later in the week. I think we have a video clip to pop up. This is from our FreightWaves videographer and photographer, Jim Allen. This was over the weekend along I-45 near Teague, Texas. Icy roads. There was an accident that had a big backup for 4 hours with a lot of tractor trailers involved in that backup there that you see on the highway in the video. And there's just going to be, I anticipate, more problems on the roads, the rails, and at airports in the coming days for the rest of the week.
Thank you very much for that, Nick. It's cold everywhere, isn't it, Michael Vincent?
It is. You ever been in one of those backups like that, and you're behind you're surrounded by trucks, and then the truck in front of you just turns off?
Yes, I have. I have.
That's like the worst feeling. There's always that hope that maybe they're going to move right now, and then they shut down. And you're like, yeah, well, all right. We're in it for the long haul.
So the last time that happened, the last time that happened was back in October. I flew back to Oklahoma, and I flew back to Nashville. It was through Nashville, and I drove down here. It was like 11 o'clock at night whenever I landed. I was like, oh, I'll be in Chattanooga by 1 a.m., right? No big deal. And I get about 30 miles from Chattanooga, and that happened. And I was there until 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I sat on the highway
It's
for
the worst.
5 hours, and
That is the worst.
all the trucks just shut down. I'm like, oh, this is not a good sign.
Yeah, when
This
you
is
hear
not
them
a good sign.
yeah, when they start shutting down, you're done. I mean, that's it. You're like, God. I was in one going down to Cincinnati from Cleveland to Cincinnati when I was in high school, going down to visit University of Cincinnati, and we got stopped. It was me and my buddies, and we got into a huge snowball fight with a bunch of truckers across on the other side. I mean, it had been 100 people just in this huge snowball fight for like 2-3 hours. It was out of control, but it was fun. We had fun anyways. But
Yeah, you got to
let's
pass the
move
time,
on. We
right?
got yeah. Do we have some market update from Zach Strickland today?
We do.
Hey guys, so
Weather gets cold.
once again, weather is wreaking havoc on the freight market with rejection rates jumping back up over 22%. For the first time in a couple of weeks. We saw a similar pattern happen a few weeks ago with the nor'easter that hit the northeastern section of the country. Rejection rates have been trending lower since Christmas, New Year's holiday, and then they kind of bounced at the end of January, early February, as we saw a lot of rejection rates in that northeastern corridor, Harrisburg, Allentown, Elizabeth, New Jersey, all jumped up kind of out of sequence with where they had been trending. So this time it's more located in the central part of the United States. We were already seeing this trend in the Midwest as temperatures up there brutally cold in the negative teens and stuff, and in some of those northern sections of the Midwestern corridors. But now it's Dallas, Memphis, St. Louis. They're all experiencing significant capacity disruptions. Now, St. Louis was not one of those markets that was right in the center of this storm or anything like that, but a lot of those lanes are moving across, a lot of those St. Louis outbound lanes are moving across where a lot of the weather's been hitting. Now, it's not just limited to the areas that had the direct impact. You had markets in, like I said, with St. Louis, but also some of those fringe markets that are around those areas and markets that are definitely having some of these icy conditions in Nashville, as well as Little Rock, of course, right in the epicenter, but Columbus, Cleveland, these areas are used to getting snow and cold weather, but they're also seeing some of the more significant increases in rejection rate here over the past few days. Another system, pay attention to Nick Austin's segment here, but another system's set to move across the same stretch of country, so that's going to keep conditions more than likely relatively tight. And, it will impact the broader capacity in the market for the days to come.
Thank you for that, Zach.
He brings up a good point real quick. There is, just because you're not in the heart of this storm or you're used to this type of stuff, like in a case of Columbus and Cleveland, nobody's used to ice. When ice comes through, you're shut down. Doesn't matter how many wheel drive you have, you're being shut down, right? But that domino effect is something that can really affect us, what he's alluding to there. And you got to watch out for that, even without the weather, the domino effect that can happen. But let's check in with Anthony Smith and see what's going on in economics with his economic update.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, Michael. So we're going to talk about something that we haven't touched on in a while, and that is the Empire State Index. This moved up 9 points, up to 12.1 points overall. This is going to be baseline right around that 0 point, so anything above 0 is going to be indicative of growth. And we haven't spoke about the Empire State Index in some time. This is going to be a regional Fed index that overlooks manufacturing, and there's many indices that get put out by the Federal Reserve, whether it be the Empire State Index looking at New York, the Kansas City, California has one or two, Dallas Fed. So there are quite a few of these regional Fed indices. And what they do is they measure the local manufacturing activity there in that immediate arena. And so what we're seeing in this latest movement for the Empire State Index is new orders moved up, shipments moved up, and inventories are indeed building. We also saw some capital spending increasing, and this is all good news for flatbed trailer activity. Some of the cons that we've spoke about before when we're looking at either industrial production or PMI is that input prices have increased to one of the highest levels and that we've seen in over a decade. One of the other things that we saw happen was delivery times lengthened. And so these are going to be areas that we're going to have to watch closely as manufacturing starts to ramp up. Again, good news for flatbed trailer types. This is going to be a lighter first half of the week for releases, but we have retail sales and industrial production and housing starts coming out later on this week. So we have been optimistic about housing over the past few months here, still optimistic about housing overall, But it's something to keep in mind that a lot of it's going to be pent up demand and limited inventory that's really kind of propping up overall activity for housing. When we look at industrial production, if we have 1 month of maybe slower growth or downward movement for either housing or industrial production, it's not indicative of an overall trend, and it's not a reason for to be concerned that there's going to be a reversal suddenly. Look for trends over 2, 3, or 4 months really starting to build, but look for these updates in the coming months. So definitely a pleasure sharing these updates with you guys, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for that update. Amanda Miller says she'll always need her wheels. It's all about freedom and independence for me. I hate being in a position of relying on something else to get around. And I think we probably share that. Yeah, we share that same opinion right there as well.
Heck yeah. Yes, yeah. Nico Brown says, what has happened to overall volume while the tender rejections were falling? Well, it's been trickling down, not falling off a cliff, still incredibly elevated over last year, same year, and not the off season that you would think as far as volumes are concerned, but nothing that is dropping off a cliff or rising rapidly that would cause these fluctuations in OTRA, at least not nationally. Now, when you get into the different markets separated around the United States, there's definitely a lot of volatility there that can mess things up.
There is, and we're coming back into the March. March is just right around the corner, and then April, and then we will, I mean, if we get into that seasonal demand pattern that increases volumes during that time, I mean, we could be really off to the races once more from this seasonal low. So it'll be interesting to see.
You got stimulus coming online. You've got a whole different amount of freight that can come back up with people starting to travel, et cetera. I've got some buddies still who do a lot of work in the islands with ocean carriage into the islands. The Caribbean is what I'm referring to. And they're looking at elevated cargo right now in anticipation of the tours coming back. So, and that's a lot of construction material and that stuff heading down into the islands. So I expect a lot of that would happen here too.
It is, and let's turn to the port of Houston and Houston in general and see what activity is there and how the weather is affecting them with Patrick Maher. He's a vice president of business development at Gulf Winds International. How are you doing today, Patrick?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Michael, for having me.
You bet. Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know that the weather is pretty hairy down in Houston, and a lot of people without power and Wi-Fi, and I think that includes you too.
It does. We actually lost power where I was at yesterday at about 6 o'clock. So I felt blessed for most of yesterday, and really just was fortunate to get a full workday in, and then the power went out. So we stand right now with the power out where I'm located, and it's part of a rolling blackout situation that doesn't appear to be rolling at all, which is a bit of a joke right now. But that's kind of where we sit. I mean, we're along with I believe 1.4 million people in the Houston metro area without power, 4.2 across the state of Texas, and they're hoping to get maybe 10 to 15% of those people back online today. But really, guys, it's a situation where it's not just a historic weather event, but now it's a historic weather event coupled with a historic power outage event that most of the people didn't see coming, right?
So, Patrick, what's the temps there? Are we talking about dangerously cold through the power outage, as in life-threatening, or incredibly? And I don't want to make light of it, but I mean, is this a severe, situation here where we got a possible deaths because of it, freezing?
Absolutely. So I know the running joke, and even we have it down here, is that we don't put our we put our winter coats on when it hits about 40, but that's not the situation at all. Last night, actually, we got down into right at about 10, 11 degrees, and in Houston, and so it is warming up right now. It's blue skies. We'll get a bit of a thaw out this afternoon. It's 23 right now where I am, but we'll end up having freezing rain again tonight. We'll drop back down, and then it'll be kind of a slow thaw out the rest of the week. We're hoping that we don't get another wave of it, and that's obviously a big concern. It's also a big concern for North Texas as well. You guys mentioned earlier in the broadcast, some of the things Zach mentioned about Dallas, Fort Worth. That area has absolutely gotten hammered. as well. I mean, that started really, really over the weekend and even on Friday. You guys covered a lot, with the different traffic accidents in Austin and Dallas and Oklahoma, and it hasn't gotten much better, and it won't, until we really start to thaw out.
Just out of
Wow.
curiosity, Patrick, when was the last time it snowed in Houston?
Well, I don't know what our definition of snow is probably different than most of the people listening, but we'll get some sprinkles, every couple years. But as far as the temps go and the snowfall, I mean, it's been decades. I think it's 3 or 4 decades since we had
Mm.
this type of snowfall, and we're in record low temperatures going back, 100 years. So obviously, we're in unprecedented territory. Not what our infrastructure is built for. Even our roadways, I mean, a lot of what Houston is built is elevated roadways. And so you have air that
Yeah.
flows underneath our beltway system, our major highways and interstates, not necessarily for flooding, but just that's how it's built. And so everything can ice over really, really quickly. And then obviously, our population, including myself, is not geared for dealing in these kind of conditions as far as operating a vehicle. And so what ends up happening is it's just a shutdown, right? And then a
Mhm.
thaw, and that happens obviously in other areas, but more so in Houston.
Wow. Yeah, it's so rare they call them sprinkles, Kevin.
I
That'll tell you something right there. But wow. Well, hopefully it gets better soon. So how is I would imagine the port? How's the port? Is the port even operating right now?
No, so the Port of Houston's closed. It was closed yesterday. We're awaiting an update here at 1 o'clock, and that'll tell us really what's going to go on for the next 24 hours. And the port does an amazing job here. Obviously, we've got a lot of history and a lot of practice with floods and hurricanes and just emergency preparedness. So I'm sure as soon as it's safe to operate, the roads, they've got to get their staffing. I'm sure they'll have to go in there and assess the equipment. And as soon as they're able to do that, which I assume they're doing, right now, then they'll end up opening, and then they'll work with the trucking community as they always do to to do whatever's possible in the days and weeks to come to make sure that cargo flows out. But right now, I mean, it's everybody's kind of in the same boat. I mean, it's just a bit of a standstill. Volumes right now are very high through the Port of Houston, not to the point where anything's congested at all, but we are seeing a lot of cargo flow, a lot of imports coming in, particularly from other ports, maybe the West Coast. We're seeing a push
Mm.
there, and
Mhm.
so really couldn't happen at a worse time, I would say, for the shipping community as far as just to kind of swing the pendulum into some disruption. Whenever you lose a couple days, it then takes more days to come out of that, right? So for every day you're down, it could take 3 or 4 for things to kind of normalize. I think what we don't know right now is that there's just so many people without power. So how
Yeah.
does that how does
Mhm.
that impact labor at the different distribution centers? It's not just the port. I mean, it's the whole infrastructure that's out there, and how quickly does that come back online?
Yeah.
So, so,
People go
so
ahead, Kevin.
oh, no, I was just going to say. So, Patrick, we talk about the congestion out on the West Coast. It looks like some reroutings coming through Houston, and on a typical year, there's more. I would say probably more balance to the bulk loads than containerized volume. Is that being shifted around with ships being rerouted into Houston?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's as much as rerouting is. I would say, Kevin, it's customers taking advantage of additional gateways, and so
Hmm.
Hmm.
Houston has built over the last several years quite a bit of all water service from Asia into Houston, and so customers are able to take advantage of that service now, and they're not totally locked into going through LA Long Beach to try to hit the inland network like the Dallas, like St. Louis, Kansas City, even Chicago. And so
Hmm.
you're starting to see that. You were starting to see it happen, frankly, even before COVID, and then even before the current issues on the West Coast. But it's getting more and more prevalent, each month that we go by, and I don't see it turning around anytime soon.
So yeah, I would imagine that Panama Canal upgrades have changed the mix of freight that comes into Houston, and right now the congestion, people like you said taking advantage of another gateway there, because it's traditionally been bulk and chemical, really, right? And so at Gulfwinds International, where are you guys at? What do you guys do there? Are you guys more bulk, or are you the dry freight, or package to container, break bulk?
Yeah, we're absolutely 100% asset-based container drayage company. We're one of the leading ones here in our region, including the Port of Houston, which is our home, and then we also operate transload facilities right there
Hmm.
at the gates of the ports. We've got a really good cross section of both import and export of what's moving, and so our world is containers, and we've definitely seen an influx, into Houston, and so hoping that we thaw out really quickly so we can get back to work.
Yes, certainly. I mean, every day is a delay, and it's crucial to get the freight in. On the rail side, the intermodal rail side, how's the weather affecting that? How are the volumes coming out of Houston through the rail?
Yeah, I'd say most of our volumes that we handle are actually through the port. We don't see as
Okay.
much through the rail, but we operate a couple hundred trucks up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which are all rail intermodal trucks, and so we're 100% a rail carrier up there in Dallas-Fort Worth, and those volumes have been sporadic. They're going to go as the West Coast goes, and so
Hmm.
you'll see big bunches, and then you'll see a little bit of a let up, and you'll see some big bunches. I did see last night before my power went out that the Union Pacific came out after hours, after 5 o'clock, and announced that they were doing some type of shutdown for 72 hours across their network. I don't think the whole network, but at least um, you know I think almost half of the network where there's weather. So as some of those trains stop, um, that's going to impact things as well, and it'll create further bunching as we try to get out of it.
So, Patrick, I happen to know a little bit about Gulfwinds International, and thank you for letting people know where you guys are at there as far as your operations and what you guys are doing there. But Gulfwinds International is also it's a family owned and a good faith based company, I would say, with a great culture there and supporting the the community there in Houston and abroad. Can you speak to that a little bit and how that importance is to the culture of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that up. So, obviously a family-owned company, culture and just a culture of giving back was started by our late founder, Steve Stewart, and then has really cascaded over the last couple of years with Todd Stewart, our president and chairman. And really, the vision is just that we give back and that we invest in our people and our culture, both here within the four walls of Gulf Winds, locally within the communities that we have operations, and then even abroad. And so we give away quite a bit, to different causes, but more importantly, we really work to engage our employees in volunteer efforts through our foundation, and then also try to get our customers and our vendors and really anybody that's interested in the freight community to be a part of that. And so we partner with a lot of different nonprofits and really want people to come to work for Gulf Winds. And we have a motto, more than the move, but we really want people to come in and have it be about even more than moving freight. And it's something that's really just at the heart of what we do every day. And it's been a great journey. I've been at Gulf Winds for 13 years. It's been neat to watch that evolve, and in the last couple of years we've actually gotten recognized in Houston as best place to work, and then just recently one of the top workplaces in the US. So really proud of that, and that just speaks to just our people and our culture.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's a wonderful story and narrative there, mission statement as well. Patrick, thanks for coming on. Even in this inclement weather, no power, no Wi-Fi, but you called in. We'll get you on this show again very soon, where we can do video and do another session, check in on the Port of Houston. How does our audience reach out and learn more about Gulf Winds and contact you directly?
Yeah, so great question. I'll direct you guys first to our website, www.gwii.com. Or also you can reach out to me directly, Patrick Maher at Gulf Winds. We've got a ton of us as well on our leadership team, our sales folks. A lot of people are on LinkedIn. Reach out to them directly as well. So I would use those channels, and looking forward to connecting again soon.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Thank you so
very
much, Patrick.
Thank
Wow, not a good situation in Houston, my friend, or
It is
Texas
not.
for that matter. 4.2 million people without power, and 23 degrees, which is cold. I don't care who you are.
It is.
Not
It
just for
is cold.
Texas.
I
Yeah.
know. It's amazing. You know, snow event down in Houston. It's just a major storm. Just probably 20, 30-year storm, maybe 40-year storm. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and then they're going to get supposed to get freezing rain again tonight, so that's not a good thing. Hopefully, it
I
gets
know.
warm there, warms up there fairly quickly, and we don't
It-
have fatalities out of this. Is what we were getting at earlier, because man,
Yeah,
people are not used to this.
and that's one place I wouldn't want to drive in this weather because I mean Patrick was talking about the overpasses, and you've been to Houston, I've been to Houston.
Oh yeah,
Driving those, I mean those are huge overpasses. I mean they're 100 feet in the air, maybe not 100 feet in the air, but it seems like 100 feet in there. You know, I don't really know how. They're
yeah,
higher than most places.
yeah, they're impressive. I mean, we don't have any interchanges like that, and I mean they have interchanges there that are bigger than the entire city of Chattanooga. So.
I know, right?
Or they appear to be, anyways. You know what I
They
mean? Like,
certainly do.
wow,
Everything's bigger in Texas, I suppose, right?
that's what
So,
they say, my friend. That's what they say.
let's check in on the West Coast ports and the congestion and agricultural exports with Ann LaRocco, the author of Trade Wars: Containers Don't Lie. How are you doing today, Lori?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic. We are much better than Houston, I think, which is saying a lot these days. But yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. And you were on a couple weeks ago. You've written a couple columns now on American Shipper about the West Coast ports and agricultural exports. And we have an update, and you're going to go even deeper into this coming up March 1st through 3rd during the Global Supply Chain Week, the Global Maritime Sessions. They're March 1 through 3, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. We've got some exclusive data that we'll be sharing on Amazon and other companies. As you know, I say containers don't lie. And when it comes to the container congestion, it's a story in and of itself. And unfortunately, with what we're seeing with the rails, and you guys pointed out in the previous segment, the bunching is also impacting, the containers trying to leave the port because it's that trickle down effect. So it's we're all connected in the great United States, and unfortunately, with this weather storm, it's only going to exacerbate the problem that we're seeing at the ports of LA and Long Beach.
Yeah, the domino effect, so to speak, crosses all modes, does it not? It's not just market, but maritime affects the rail, and the rail affects the truck, and so on and so forth. The intermodal in its trueness affects each part of itself, right? As you move across.
Exactly, and the interesting thing is, and I hit on it last week for American Shipper, that when you're looking at this congestion, and you see 30-something plus ships, outside of the port of Los Angeles, that equates to days, right? And then you've got the processing once the vessel gets to the port, and then eventually to the truck or the rails. To show you just how clogged things are, I had Import Genius look through customs, and we still have Christmas product coming into the port. And if you are an investor in retail, that is not a good thing, because you're now seeing a lot of Christmas product on the secondary market where, retailers are selling on the penny. This is not good. And we're also seeing a delay in Easter products.
Does that give you a sense of how many? Because we had this conversation before, and about we asked somebody, what kind of revenue were we talking about that is sitting there? The videos. We got a picture from Wayne Craig, truck driver. He was flying out of San Diego, I believe. He was flying out of San Diego, and he got a picture of it, a really good picture out his window of the ships at anchor. And then we got the video there, and now they've got. I mean, there's even more out there. It doesn't look real with all of them out there. What are we talking revenue wise? What's the economic impact? Do we have any idea of that?
I haven't drilled down on that like I did with the ag exports, that we did a couple of months ago. But the whole thing is when you've got, all of these containers coming in with product that automatically has to be discounted, or sold pennies on the dollar. In the end, it's going to hit that trickle down effect. I mean, Peloton was on CNBC, and the company spent $100 million for expedited shipping. I mean, come on, expedited shipping and that's like a joke. What's hurry up and
Yeah,
wait so you're on the line a little bit longer?
yeah.
It's insane. It's literally insane. So I think we're going to see this snowball effect in the next couple of quarters with these retailers.
I think you're going to see it certainly with the large public companies. And, so someone pinged me on LinkedIn yesterday saying, what about the coverage for the smaller wholesalers, right? That are,
Yeah.
the goods aren't showing up, their cash flow is just shot. Are we going to see a rash of bankruptcies from smaller wholesalers, distributors, importers over the coming months?
I wouldn't be surprised. I actually spoke with a manufacturer, actually of PP and other products, earlier, and he's getting squeezed on both sides, where
Hmm.
he's paying more money for his product to come in, and then on the flip side, when it comes to the air or the trucking, he's paying more on that end. So they're getting squeezed right in the middle. There is no such thing as a pandemic clause when it comes to these manufacturers going back to, say, Walmart or
Hmm.
Target saying, hey, listen, my cost is up 45%. I need to increase my product. They don't care. So in the end, someone's going to there's only so much that they can eat. And I think they're at that point.
I wonder if parts of that can be addressed through stimulus package loans through this third stimulus that's coming through. I don't know if you've dug into that at all, but those things that aren't coverable by insurance, like you said, they don't have that pandemic stuff. I wonder how much can that be. You got Peloton out there, uh, Peloton
Yeah.
spending what millions to air freight
Yeah.
400-pound bicycles. You don't air freight a
Yes.
400-pound bicycle.
No, and it's so true. And as one of the colleagues from American Shipper wrote about today, how if you look at with Freightos, the price of air cargo and maritime, it's cheaper to go by air. I was talking to one of my logistics contacts. They are shipping hot tubs on planes. Hot
Wow.
tubs. That's insane.
That
That
is
is literally
insane.
insane. It's insane. But then at the same time, though, you have the news of CMA, CGM announcing that they're getting into air freight.
I was
So,
just gonna say.
Hmm.
I was just gonna say that you got a
Yeah.
maritime, you got an ocean shipper buying airplanes. It's
yeah,
out of control.
six. Yeah, it's insane. But imagine, I asked the CEO, I said, do you have a photo of this? Like, how do you ship a hot tub? Yeah, I mean, they're huge.
Yeah.
Like, how does it get on the plane? It can fit? Like,
Excuse
how?
me, excuse me. This is your captain speaking. We'll be on our way as soon as we get these five or six Peloton bikes and a couple of jacuzzis need to be loaded, and we'll be on our way.
Exactly. It's insane.
So, so Lorianne, did you see the video? Because we talk about the congestion out there, and
Yeah.
it's a little bit abstract. I mean, we
Yeah.
understand it, but a lot of the general public doesn't. And my
Yeah.
dad was on here a little while ago, but he reads Zero Hedge and things like that. So he sees it, but he's out of the industry. But the
Mhm.
video that Greg Miller had out on American Shipper that really showed the
Yeah.
congestion, it really brings that
Yeah.
home. I mean, what were your thoughts on that?
It's one thing of hearing about it than seeing it. And when
Hmm.
you see the ships to the proverbial horizon, right, across the
Yep.
Pacific, it just really brings home the problem that we have. And And while it's great that the longshoremen are finally getting the vaccine, right? I mean, what, 40% of the longshoremen
Yeah.
have COVID out
Yeah.
there? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The human
Hmm.
element of trade is so very important.
Mm.
And
Mm.
and with the congestion that we're seeing, coupled with the slowdown that we have in China right now because of Lunar New Year, this is going to go on for months, well into the summer. I do not believe that this is all going to be done by June, as some people are predicting. I just don't see it.
I don't either. I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't see it being cleaned up by June. It just keeps backing up. It's like one of those
Yeah.
massive, like you're driving on the belt around Atlanta, and you're slowed down almost in dead stop, and you get there and there's nothing there, right? I mean, this is going to
Yeah.
take a long time to clear up, right?
Exactly. And I mean, and while you do have retailers like Amazon, they've got the 4 distribution sites at the Port of Baltimore. They're bringing more product in over there. But the fact is, I mean, everything is just clogged. And, the whole system is just really just crippled right now with this concrete known as the container congestion.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But we'll all three of us will be keeping our eyes fixed on this problem and see. I think to June, it's not going to end in June. We might get
Yeah.
a little bit better by June, but there's going to be after effects of this for a while. Thank you so much, Florian, for coming on today. How does our audience reach out and contact you and learn more about your articles and your work on LinkedIn?
Sure thing. You can find me definitely on LinkedIn, Twitter, and then that's pretty much it, and a little bit of Facebook. But I'm out there.
Great. We'll have you on in a couple weeks with another update on what's going on in global trade and
Thanks for
also
having
global
me.
supply chain. You're
Yep.
going to be, you have what, 2 or 3 sessions during those 2 or 3 or those 3 days that we have for global maritime
Yes.
logistics, right? Perfect.
Yeah, I've got 3 great segments. It's going to be awesome.
Great. Thank you again, Lorianne. Bye.
Thank you, Lorianne.
So
Well,
Michael Vincent, what's
she's
on?
very vociferous, my friend. She's very
She is
vociferous. And I
vociferous.
love to have her on.
So, and I think you guys have a vociferous what the truck tomorrow. What do we have for that?
Yeah, we do. We have David Lester, founder and CEO of Lollipop. Remember the whole tab is going to be taken off the shelf, and Dooner was losing
Yeah.
his mind because it's his favorite
Oh
thing.
yeah.
I
I
so
probably got
David
100
Lester.
texts about that.
Yeah, well, David Lester, founder and CEO of Lollipop, sent him some samples of his I guess it's like 0-calorie soda, but he's going to be on talking about that. We got Tyler Robertson on from Diesel Laptop, which we haven't had on in a while. I think you and I talked to him earlier last
Yeah,
year
we did.
a number of times about they were the ones that were weren't they they hired a elementary teacher to come and teach in their offices, right? When
Yes.
the schools closed.
Exactly
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
for their employees. And then we have Tom Albrecht, a friend of FreightWaves, CFO and CRO at Reliance Partners, coming on to talk about the how long the bull market is going to go. So he's going to look into his crystal ball tomorrow and tell us how long that's going to go on. So yeah, great show tomorrow.
Right. And we had put that coffee down yesterday. We had Greg Johnson from COO of Zimbles talk about defining qualified leads. So you can find that on demand at tv.freightwaves.com. And as always, all our shows, Midday Market Update with the truck, Put That Coffee Down, Freightonomics, Great Quarter Guys, they're all available on wherever you download your podcasts. Freightcast, that's the whole network. You can get all those shows with one subscription to that. And then we have our virtual conference. Go here to register live.freightwaves.com. Starts Monday, February 22nd. We have a full week of different industries and examining those supply chains, full day sessions. And then March 1st through 3rd, we have global maritime logistics, 3 days dedicated to technology, to trade, to things that are going on. Lorianne's going to be on there. Steve Ferrara, the keynote, Gary V. Gary V will be speaking, as well as Bob Corker, former U.S. Senator. And it's going to be a great event. We also have a lot of prizes if you go registered. So it's too long to list, but if you go to live.freightwaves.com, you'll find them all there. I think an 80-inch TV. I think it's color too, which is very important. And
and an
Top Golf.
Xbox.
Xbox, Top Golf, a workout, not a Peloton, but something else. I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me right now. But really excellent conference full of great speakers. You can go to live.freightwaves.com, look for Global Supply Chain Week to find all of that. And again, we have What the Truck tomorrow and Freightonomics too. And we have great quarter guys coming up at 3 o'clock today. And that'll do it for this edition of the Midday Market Update.